Mr. Hughes.
Good morning and welcome to San Juan County Council's Tuesday, November 17th, 2020 regularly scheduled meeting. We will now call the meeting to order. Would you all rise and please, Ingrid, if you could say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Order of business is to do our Coast Salish acknowledgement. Let us all acknowledge we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people who have taken care of these lands since time immemorial. There are no excused absences. Are there any changes? Actually, Ingrid, if we can we add an executive session to the end of the day? And it would to discuss evaluation and performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.1110(1G. And both Bill and Jamie, I was only joking about my link because I sent a document for the executive session at about midnight as well. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't expect any action on it today, but just for your reference.
Okay. Can I? This isn't for today's agenda, but the lodging tax group met on Friday afternoon, and so I'm just wondering if we can put that on the agenda for next week.
Ingrid, so you want to have is it a lodging tax budget discussion, or what would you like it to be?
Yeah, lodging tax grant discussion or approval.
So there'll be action taken?
Yes, hopefully.
Excellent. So Ingrid on the 24th? Great, thank you. Mr. Watson, do you have anything?
Yeah, so my understanding is we're supposed to be having a executive session with Randy on a land use enforcement issue. And I left him voicemail and pinged him yesterday about it, but I was sort of expecting it today, and it's not on today's agenda. So if you can at least
Ingrid, could you add to the 24th agenda to an additional executive session? We'll have the one that for the public employee on the 24th, and also to add an executive session to discuss current pending litigation.
Yeah.
To RCW 42.30.1110(1I).
Pending employee being performance also
Yes.
on the 24th.
The same thing we're adding today, we'd add that next week. Thank you, Mr. Watson. I did forget about that that request. So we'll get that on there next week. Unless Mr. Gates cares to talk about it later today, then we can add it after our break.
Right.
Mr. Stevens, do you have anything else?
No, I didn't have anything else.
All right, thank you. We have one set of minutes. Have you both had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yep.
Yes.
Entertain a motion for approval, please.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the meeting minutes for the San Juan County Council meeting on November 10th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes for November 10th, 2020. Any comments or questions? Without seeing any, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Can you hear me with my mask on?
Yep.
I can hear you.
Great. Have you both had an opportunity to look at the incredibly long and detailed council consent agenda?
Yep.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. I would entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda for the San Juan County Council meeting of November 17th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda for Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. Are there any questions or comments regarding this motion? Without seeing any, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Stevens, the next issue we're going to talk about is correspondence. And you have been, I know, pretty active in a bunch of different issues, and I just want to make sure that if there is anything you need in the next couple of weeks, we have it on the agenda.
Yeah, I was wondering, there was for next week a letter to the BLM. Marcia Deschadnes has accepted another position in the BLM, and there has been rumor that they might not appoint another monument manager, but I'd like to put a letter together to say we look forward to a new manager, and hopefully they'll get on it right away. It's also part of their policies that any national monument has a manager as a position.
So, Ingrid, if we could add a letter of correspondence to the BLM regarding replacement of the local manager. And then I also would like to bring forward the letter, a letter to the Hospice Northwest from our council in support of not selling. And I've left a message, and we'll follow up again to what I said I'd do last week regarding Hospice Northwest.
Also, Mr. Chair, we had received an email from Kendra concerning the proposed regulations for oil spill prevention and response, and I think she's on the agenda for next week. I'm not sure. Anyway, I was thinking we should probably, I'll get on that and make sure we have a letter and that we could discuss and approve if we see fit.
Okay, great. There is a public comment from Lovell Pratt, I think, regarding this issue that I'm going to partially read today. But that would be great. So we're going to have 3 letters next week of correspondence, correct?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Watson, anything?
Nope.
All right. At this point, we will go into public access. I have 2 emails that have been collected. Let me go through the... All right, so the first guest that we have on the line, you have 3 minutes if you care to speak. It says ends in 4148. Would you like to provide public comment?
Yes, please.
You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and which island that you're from.
Great. Thank you, Rick. Ed Andrews, Orcas Island. As you all know, we are entering a very trying phase fighting the pandemic. 40% of our overall cases have occurred in the last 2.5 to 3 weeks after not having any cases for 10 weeks. For the first time in 9 months, we have serious community-based transmission happening on our islands. Dr. James's leadership through this pandemic has been admirable and tireless, as well as all other county employees. No doubt he and the county team have to be completely exhausted. With winter coming, there is no near end to their valiant efforts. My hope is that the county council listen to his sage advice and leadership. In times of health crises, we need our medical leaders, not our politicians, to take the reins of this battle so that they can guide us through this as safely as possible. Thank you for your time, your leadership. Be well, be safe.
Thank you, Ed. The next person on the line is Mr. Gomez, again from the EDC. I assume that you're just listening, is that correct?
Good morning. Yes, thank you. Just listening.
Thank you. The next guest we have, or person online, is Kyle Davies. I assume you're just listening. Is that correct, Kyle?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. That's correct. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And the last person I have online is Peter Lane. Number ends in 4781. Mr. Lane, or whomever is on the phone, you have 3 minutes. If you please state your name and where you're from.
Peter Lane, San Juan Island, but just listening. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I will ask one time, first time. Is there anyone online who would like to provide public comment? You have 3 minutes. Please unmute and state your name. Don't see any. I'm going to ask again. Is there anyone who is online or has called in who would like to provide public comment at this point? All right. That'll be the end of the public comment section from who have called in or online. I have two letters to read. The first one is from Joe Simons. Given the governor's new announcement, will San Juan County take any steps to reduce non-essential travel? We are still in phase 2 where non-essential travel is prohibited. That said, there are basically no restrictions imposed by San Juan County regarding hospitality facilities and no enforcement of the definition of non-essential travel. I have operated a licensed vacation rental for almost 30 years. My guests are exclusively from out-of-county locations. The hospitality industry is a COVID vector. Strongly urge San Juan County to significantly reduce the inflow and out-of-county visitors. One, surely, in parentheses, seen as draconian measure, is to pull the plug, even if temporarily, on components of the hospitality ecosystem. The easiest is to pull suspend vacation rental permits. We are, after all, in an emergency. Those who have existing reservations will be encouraged or forced to cancel them. Visitors should not be coming anyway. They are breaking the non-essential travel policy. And in parentheses, I don't know if it's even enforceable by law, but I imagine it should be. Let's not wink at the issue or shrug shoulders and throw up our hands. Existing commercial hospitality venues should have occupancy reduced to at least 50% or more. Random audits should be implemented and stiff fines levied and enforced. How many new cases do we have to tolerate before we take action commensurate with the problem? Thank you, as always, Mr. Simons, for your enlightenment. Our next comment is from Lovell Pratt regarding a comment that was just made on 2021 legislative priorities. Council, as you identified San Juan County's 2021 legislative priorities, please consider including a priority that will improve oil spill response readiness and also support IOSA, amending WAC 173, 182, 370 to require the 4 to 6 hour planning standards to be resident would increase the oil spill response equipment and personnel located in San Juan County and would also increase the funding for oil spill response capacity IOSA. Currently, only the 2 to 3 hour planning standards are required to be resident. This legislative priority would be consistent with finding number 5 in the 2015 San Juan County oil spill response capacity evaluation. And Mr. Stevens, I don't need to read that, do I?
No.
And this is what you were addressing a few minutes ago, correct?
No, it wasn't.
Oh. All right. So let's see. This is a priority. I also urge you to retain legislative priority regarding the additional ERTV with the added detail that it be stationed wherever deemed most effective by the San Juan County Contracted Vessel Drift and Response Analysis, Strait of Juan de Fuca, the Strait of Georgia ERTV Effectiveness Analysis. Thank you for your attention to oil spill prevention, preparedness, and response issues. Sincerely, Lovell Pratt. All right. It is 10:13. We have.
So what I was, we could add that or some variation of it to the ledge priorities when we talk about that. On the letter I was talking about is about the commercial whale watch licensing program.
Got it. Okay. In regards to the request, I mean, I look to you on the oil spill. I support whatever you think is necessary for our legislative priorities. So that's up to you.
Okay.
I mean, we have said since I think I've been in office for 8 years that this oil spill response and readiness was one of our most key important issues. So I don't have a problem with what she's asked.
Right. Neither do I.
Mr. Watson, we have 20 seconds. Do you have any enlightenment for us?
Not this morning.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, well, I'm like the weather. Overcast.
Well, that was entertaining for at least 15 seconds.
Good one.
All right. It is now 9:15, and we have a public hearing, which is a continuation from November 10th, and public testimony will be accepted if there's any needed. This public hearing is to adopt an ordinance of San Juan County, Washington, amending the annual budget for 2021 and setting forth the estimated revenues and appropriations with Mylene Henley, Auditor, and Mike Thomas, County Manager. Mike and Mylene, are you on the line?
I am here.
So, Mylene, at 3:30 in the morning, or 3:27, or whatever the time was, you sent us a bunch of documents. Is that for this presentation?
Yes, it is.
And how would you care for us to go through it? So I don't think any of us realized you had sent any information.
I can understand that. I think the thing that would be productive to do today is to look at the decision packages and to look at the budget summary. You asked for a list of the decision packages in the same format as you've had them before, and that's what you've got. You've also got the detailed descriptions of many of all of the decision packages, although for many there isn't a lot of detail. And you should look at those in the light of the current ending cash and current expense. The current expense, which, cutting to the chase, ending cash and current expense is now $633,000, which is a worse position than when we adopted 2021. Now that does assume that basically almost all of the decision packages are included based on your comments at previous meetings. So that would probably be the most productive thing, is to look at those.
Mr. Thomas, are you on?
I am. Yeah, I mean, I agree. You need to walk through all the detail that Mylene put together. Maybe start with the big picture and then get to the decision packages. And then, Mylene, maybe you could let us know what's included in the current expense stuff that you put together. You just mentioned the decision packages, but is the position budget exercise also included in here?
Yes, the current expense budget is reasonably complete. There will still be some cross-checking with other funds, making sure transfers match, all the usual stuff. But yes, the current expense budget includes all of the recent position changes. The changes from the MOU, I assume you understand, increase the budget. They did not decrease the budget. They will have a positive effect in the future. But because everybody in the union was moved to an equal or greater wage in the new scale, the budget went up. There's no question about that. Now, I also added for the first time the 5 furlough days for all of the non-reps. But that was offset. I said earlier that would likely be offset by the HSAs, which also went back in with the MOU. So the net effect was an increase. It also includes, you asked Mark Tompkins last week to give you the full picture of what he might need next year. He turned in a package which is about $750,000. Not all of that is in current expense, but a large chunk of it is. And most of it is funded by fund balance. He is projecting some FEMA funds for some of the COVID response activities. And the details of that, revenue and the activities, is in the decision packages. Is broken into 5 different decisions. And so the current expense budget is, at this point, reasonably complete.
So, Mylene, real quick, I'm on the decision package piece.
Okay.
I think it's the 4th or 5th. It's got a little blue. It's an Excel sheet with a blue title.
Right.
So sent an email around yesterday saying your barred item for 1.0 courthouse security officer was not requested. So if we could take that off the decision package, that would be great.
I'm sorry?
Sarah said the 1.0 FTE for courthouse security officer for 2021 was not requested.
Okay, so I thought they still wanted that. All right, so we'll take that out. That's the only one that's not currently included in the budget you're looking at.
Great. I just wanted to clarify that because it was an email he sent around yesterday.
Okay, he didn't send it to me.
Okay. So, Mr. Thomas?
Yeah.
How should we move forward?
I guess I would start with the current expense summary so we all have a picture of where we're at, and then get into the decision packages.
And Mylene, can you share your documents so we're on the same page?
Yes, I can do that. Let me get to where they... There we
go. Is this all right? Go through it this way?
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is the current expense summary. Obviously, it is the very summary level, and that's why I included all of the detail that you could ever want to see and the other documents.
Hold on a second, Marlene. Can you guys see this on your screen?
Nope.
No.
Oh, that's odd.
We see Marlene's
All right.
smiley
Oh,
face.
I haven't said okay. Sorry. There's the okay. How about that?
Not yet. Oh, there it is.
Great.
And there, made it a little bigger. All right. So if you look at the second columns, 2021 public hearing adopted, you can see in each of these sets of two columns, the revenues on the left, expenditures on the right. We had ending cash of about $1 million, and we all knew that wasn't enough. So the goal was to increase it. But at the moment, in the far right columns, we're at $663,000 in ending cash. So the net effect of the payroll changes, as well as the $1 million worth of, now $900,000 worth of decisions, put us into a worse position.
So, Marlene, what are you assuming is revenue from sales tax?
Okay, and
because in the last report, it looked like we were going to come in somewhere between 300 and 500 above our amended budget.
Yes, and it is likely that we will, and that's, yes, we will definitely have more beginning cash than is here. I would estimate about 400,000, which puts us in a better position. But when we're budgeting, we're always looking at this picture. What I'm assuming for next year, and I'm going to talk more about this during the financial review later this morning, is equal to this year. This year, we budgeted a 20% reduction compared to last year's revenue. It is coming in at about a 10% reduction. So yes, much better. With the pandemic situation not presently looking any better, with no certainty of federal aid, the assumption is it's not going to get better next year. So that's why we're holding the line at the estimate of what we're going to get this year.
But Marlene, again, I'm looking at, not sure, current expense revenue.
Okay.
So it looks like it's showing, what is that, $600,000 more in revenue than 2020? Is that right? 580.
What are you looking at? What document?
I don't know. It was the second attachment in your sheet. It says current expense revenue, San Juan County. GL worksheet art report.
That doesn't, I'm sorry, that's not familiar to me.
You sent it.
It's the current expense revenue detail that you put
okay,
together.
that. Yes, and this is harder to read, and I'm not sure. Let me see if I can. Okay. So, so the question you're asking if it's more, yes, tax revenue next, more is projected for next year than this year. What's your question?
Well, I guess I just don't understand how we're going to be burning through $2 million extra dollars than we planned. We're going to have significant ending cash remaining. We're going to have increased revenue. And I don't see our expenses going up that dramatically.
Well, it's a lot of different lines in the budget, and you have to look at all of them. You're
Well,
looking
we only
at
want to look at a
taxes.
few of them, Eileen. Come on.
Yeah, well, if you're only going to look at two, look at the top two. Yes, that's true. Taxes are up, other things are down. For example, the $1 million worth of grant revenue that we got this year is not in this year's budget. It's not in next year's budget.
Yep. Thus far.
And where is the expense item list?
It's in the document called CE Expense Detail.
I think I need more time to digest this.
Would you like to talk about the decision packages?
Sure. Is that all right, Council?
Yeah.
Yep.
So the first one, you asked the county manager to request the reinstatement of the full management analyst position that he had. Had a hard time filling, and then we reduced it because of the recession and everything. But obviously, he's been needing help. So this shows as only a $34,000 cost, and that's because we had tentatively budgeted before that a lesser position, which was about $60,000, $70,000 with benefits position. So this is on top of that. But anyway, so that position is in here. Even if you took this out, there is I believe it's range 8, H8 position, salary about $63,000. This position, the salary is about below 80s. So it's getting the county manager the help he needs. And this is the same, pretty much the same description that that was included when the position was first created.
So, Mylene, in your decision packages, you've got like 123,000, not just an additional 30.
Oh, I'm sorry. And that is true because I was looking at the total cost of the position. If you said no to the management analyst position, but kept the other lower level position, which we never even gave a name to, but it was kind of a placeholder, then the net cost would be $34,000. I mean, but if you, yeah, you're right. That was inconsistent.
Mm.
So what should that number be in the table?
It depends on whether he gets, okay. Right now he has no position.
Right.
So relative to the no position, it's $123,000. We had already put in the budget as a placeholder a lower level position, total cost probably about $70,000. This position costs more than that, but of course is a more productive and more helpful position.
So, yeah, just to be clear, there was 60,000 in the 21 budget, and we took that and created a position to see what the level position would be given that money. So that's what Mylene's referring to. So then this adding more money gets you a different level position and a different cost.
Right. But we're talking about roughly a 50K or 60K increase.
Well, the increase relative to the other placeholder position. Again, this position has no job description, no title. It was a placeholder.
Right.
But the cost relative to that is $34,000.
So it's an increment of 34,000.
Yes, the total cost of the position is $123,000.
Got it. Right. I'm just trying to figure out the decision package is a modification to budget, right? So that modification
That's
would be
correct.
$34K. Thank
Yes.
you.
So, Marlene?
Uh-huh.
So I was just looking at the CE expenses, and it looks like the budget that we have, the adopted or revised budget for 21 is $691,000 and change lower than what we adopted as part of the biennium budget.
Okay.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how we burning through so much cash. So if our taxes are up and our spending is down, I guess I just need some help in figuring out why we're going to be $2 million off on cash, or 1.8. Like the ending cash that you have estimated is 663,000, correct?
Yes. With the assumptions that are currently in the budget.
And that would actually be 500 and something because we're not putting the sheriff's position in, correct?
No, the sheriff's position was never in.
So this negative 663 doesn't include the decision packages?
It includes all but that one. That's I believe that's the only one that I did not put in because I guess I thought this might happen.
And she has that indicated in her decision package table summary that she provided.
Yes, that is correct.
Got it. Okay. All right, Council. What questions do you have?
What do you want Mylene to finish walking through the decision packages?
That would be great.
And here's the list, which we can flip back to from time to time if you like. As you can see, the courthouse security officer is the only one that is not included in the draft budget. So let's go to the next one. The facilities manager has asked that we continue the COVID custodian position, which is 0.5 term limited through 2021. And the net cost, assuming the same person continues in the position, she will become eligible for medical, which is why the cost is greater than last year. This one is just, it's a response to the world we live in now, which is why my assumption was that you would say yes, but you don't have to.
Didn't we say yes?
I'm not sure I got clear answers on anything in the past, but.
Okay, fair enough.
Any questions about this? Otherwise, I'll continue.
Nope.
Okay. Okay, this is the first of 5 from Health and Community Services. You requested these last week, and so Mark has really looked at all the possibilities and tried to figure out funding and need. So this one is $230,000 for contract and temp help. The contract means the health officer, and the temp means on-call temp help to deal with case investigation, contact tracing, etc. He's estimating a cost of $230,000, of which he thinks will be eligible for FEMA funding for 75% of that. That's $172,500. The remaining $57,500 would come from current expense funding. Questions about that? Mark, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so if you have questions about any of these, Mark is here as well. I think it looks like I've moved to the next one accidentally. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
So
the
how much
next
is
one-
going, I have to go back to my list. So 230,000 is coming out of current expense. Isn't that the total sum that he had?
The 230,000 is coming out of current expense, but with 172,500 reimbursement from FEMA. So the net cost to current expense would be 57,500. And no, and this is one of 5 requests.
So why wouldn't we have that 57.5 as part of the summary? Because right now you're charging it all against current expense to come up with our negative numbers.
Well, I am, but the revenue is also included on the revenue side. I mean, yes, we spend $230,000. Yes, that all has to be included in expenditure. But if you look at the revenue side, in the General Administration Department, which is where we report FEMA grant funding, you'll see 172,500. So the net effect to current expense is 57,500.
Yep.
Yeah, just. It's just in the summary table, it's kind of misleading.
Well, I would not say it's misleading. I would say what it's giving you is the cost. It doesn't anywhere say net cost. It says cost.
And it says fund.
I think it just says amount.
And it says fund, current expense.
It says which fund is affected. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, this is, let's just go on to the next one.
Yep. PPE.
So the next one is $30,000 for PPE. Seems pretty self-explanatory. There is no anticipated grant support for that. Of course, many of these, there may eventually be some federal or state assistance, but we don't know that there will be. The next one is $250,000 to pay for leases for isolation and quarantine facilities. Again, Mark said he knows of no current sources of funding for that.
But this would be the same funding pool that we didn't use this year that came from Commerce that we're going to be giving back, correct?
We are using the Commerce grant funds. Are we going to use all 312? Maybe not, but we are using, we have leases with 3 different facilities, one on San Juan, one on Orcas, one on Lopez, and we have currently have folks within those facilities. Not all of them, but some of those facilities. And this is I would say, a placeholder, and kind of lays out what the potential impact would be for the county if there are no grant funds that come through. I would anticipate we would potentially need these in early 2021 as options for folks who can't safely quarantine or isolate at home. And the Commerce grant expires on 12/31.
Sorry, my apologies, Mark. I was trying to reference from my own head. This would be a similar type expenditure than what was provided in theory under the Commerce grant.
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
That's all I was trying to ask for. Sorry.
Yes, sorry. Yep.
All right.
Next.
The courthouse security officer has been withdrawn. Court facilitator, the juvenile court administrator, Linnea, talked to you about this last week. It's a position that used to be in Superior Court. It was the responsibility was moved to juvenile court during 2020 when the incumbent retired. And they've been busy getting it more organized and better documented. The work has been being performed by the juvenile court probation officer officers. And the request is to recreate the .2 FTE position, which used to be in Superior Court, but put it in Juvenile Court.
Yep. Next.
Okay.
Okay, this one is, wow, I just got an echo.
Yep.
Okay, it's gone. This is a request from me to eliminate an item in the prosecutor's budget. It's not a big money item. In fact, the money is not important. I believe there is a problem of, well, I believe it's an ethical problem. At least it's an appearance problem. We pay for a slip in the Port of Friday Harbor, which the prosecutor uses for his personal boat. We've done that for a long time because the prosecutor uses his boat for coroner purposes at times. Given that there are also coroners on San Juan Island and that there are county boats available for use, I think we should discontinue that practice. I'm not saying at all that the prosecutor should not be compensated when he uses his personal boat, because we do have policy for compensating for the use of personal vessels for work. And like I said, I put $300 in. He says I misunderstand how much he uses it, which is fine. I think that make it a break-even deal. Put in the whole 28.32, yeah, to 28.92 for travel. But right now we don't know how much he uses it because we don't pay for specific trips. I just think it would be cleaner and look better if we paid for usage and not just renting a slip for personal purposes.
Now, you said in the Port of Friday Harbor is where a slip is?
I believe so.
Yep.
I thought it was on Orcas.
No, it's here so that he can come over here for coroner cases.
Oh, well, see, I misunderstood that. I mean, if he needs to someplace to tie up, he can tie up at the day dock.
I can speak to that. They did not allow me to tie up at the day dock. They required me to get a slip 20 years ago. And so that's why the slip was obtained. Cy Stevens was the auditor at the time. This arrangement was made. I do not charge for my slip on Orcas Island. I do not charge for fuel. I do not charge for boat repairs. I am required to use my vehicles for all service as a county coroner, and I'm available 24/7, 365. That means when I'm on San Juan Island, I'm working as a coroner, and I'm available to move to any other island at a moment's notice. I cannot dedicate my time to the public ferries alone. And Van Avery, I've talked to him about availability of other boats, and people are not available to shepherd me around the county depending upon where I need to be. This is the best solution that has been.
We lost you, Randy.
Randy?
Randy?
Did you go away? I guess we lost him. So, Mylene, has the state auditor flagged this in the past?
Mylene?
Windstorm.
I put myself on mute when Randy was talking. No.
Okay.
It's a simple answer to that.
Right. Randy, you show up in the meeting, but we don't hear you anymore. Did you finish? You show up as muted, by the way.
Randy?
How about we go on to the next one, and when he joins us,
Yep.
he can pick up again.
That would be great.
Okay, this is the next two of the 5 from Health and Community Services. This one is an additional position, another limited term public health nurse for 2021. Estimated cost of position is $123,000, and this one is in the grant fund and is expected to be funded by a grant from Department of Health. So this one has no effect on the current expense fund. I assume there'd be no questions about that, so I'll continue. Sorry, did you have a question, Rick?
No, I said continue, please.
Okay, thank you. And this is the last one. This is, oh, there's one more. This is also from Health and Community Services, proposing another new term limited position. I assume through 2021. The estimated cost of this position, this is just an estimate at this point because I don't have things like range and FTE, but this is the estimate that Mark gave me, to provide care coordination and help with contract tracing. So we're basically looking at supposed to be a contact. Don't you have a hard time saying contact tracing? I hear a lot of people like myself saying contract trace. Anyway, so that's supposed to be contact tracing.
And it's not grant coordinator, it's care coordinator.
I thought I'd fix that.
In the summary table.
Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, that is supposed to be care coordinator.
Okay.
It said grant somewhere else also, and I fixed it. Anyway, this one would be split between current expense and grants. The grant part, Mark would use accumulated grant funds for, and the part in current expense would be paid for out of current expense fund balance.
So is Mark, I assume he's still on, so is this to help having someone to follow up with the people that are in isolation and quarantine, or?
Yeah, excellent question, Jamie. So this is also a conversation I had with Councilmember Watson as well, is what is the best approach? And at the time I put this together, I put in for a full year position, and it may make more sense to split this into two. It gets down to what is easier to fill and what is easier or not easier, but what is needed in the short term. Is it a year-long position, or do we need 2 6-month positions to get us through to when we anticipate having vaccines available? And so those are all excellent questions. And to answer your question, Jamie, this position would be to help with the contact tracing and also do that care coordination. So as we move folks into home isolation or quarantine, we have to ensure that they have the ability to, food supplies. They're potentially need thermometers and pulse oximeters and the like. And this person would help the team with that care and work with the resource centers and making sure that the items get delivered and the folks get what they need to safely isolate and quarantine at home. Part of this can be funded through grants, and the other part would not. And again, it's that push and pull. Do we look for 2 6-month positions and then roll into on-call, or do we do one long-term? And, we're having debate on that, what makes the most sense. And, looking at the projections and what we're thinking, it may make more sense now. And I apologize for this, to have a 2 6-month positions versus the year-long position. And it's trying to anticipate what we're expecting to see and what their staffing needs are in the short term versus the long term. But happy to answer any questions that council may have.
And Mark, I was going to bring this up in the COVID response part, but maybe it's appropriate now. I want to make sure, and we've said this the last couple weeks, what is the true head count that you need? We've had sort of the explosive growth of the count specifically on Orcus, that will need contact tracing if any of that comes to fruition. Do we have enough people for the next 6 months, even with this request, to not burn out our staff and to keep our community safe? And if not, what would, I guess we can talk about that later, but, is there still an additional need after this?
So if you look at, if we split this into two and do 2 6-month positions with the additional term limited nurse position that you approved last week, that's 3 more positions. And on top of that, you have the additional funding for the on-call folks. On a call yesterday, I had a nurse indicate that they have some additional capacity and some resources with a group that they have that may be available. And so I think there's some options. And then it gets back to the expectations for the community and what folks want the response to look like. So if you're looking at the case investigation, contact tracing, the ring testing, and then the vaccine, with the new nurse position just approved, and if we do 2 6-month positions and the on-call positions, we can
drink coffee.
We can meet that. If you're also then throwing in the need to do additional ongoing testing, which some people have requested, that we have the ability to provide ongoing testing and testing events throughout the county, then there's a different discussion. Our priority and focus has been on that case investigation, contact tracing, the ring testing around those cases, and then planning for the COVID work, and then doing the sporadic pickup of the asymptomatic testing as available. So it gets back to what the expectations are and what the case counts are and all of that at the time. We're also looking at, can we be more efficient in our contact work? So right now we are calling folks on a daily basis. They're looking at different options. Our team is looking at what makes sense, particularly when we have, 100 folks that we are contacting daily for symptom checks. Is there a different way of doing that? And so there's a variety of things that we are looking at, trying to maximize our efforts and efficiencies and not burn out staff.
Okay, but let's just assume we go through a case count that's consistent with what we've had in the last week or so. Is there not a need for at least setting money aside to provide additional staffing so that we're able to keep the community safe and not burn out our team? I mean, if
yes.
needs more help, then we need to set money aside. Health is the number one importance, not only of our staff, but of the community. And I'd much rather err and have money set aside that we can not use, we don't need it, than have all of your staff not be able to function in the community suffer.
Isn't that?
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, I was going to say, that's what we asked you to do, and that's what you got back with Mylene. So
yes,
it's the way I understand what this exercise is.
This would give us 3 bodies if we split that request into 2 6-month positions, and the full-time nurse. So 3 additional bodies over what we currently have. That is a significant boost to our response activities. And then you're also setting aside $150,000 for the on-call work. So that would be, as some people describe it, like the bullpen. And if we could find these folks, and there's some opportunities to maybe bring some others on who can provide that surge capacity when we get to larger case counts, would allow us to be responsive to these cases. The question becomes is if the expectation is we also do weekly drive-through testing on the various islands, then that would be a different response for me. That would require probably additional staffing to make that happen. And so if the expectations are we have this we provide asymptomatic testing and we move around the county and it's done on a weekly basis. That is a different model, and that's not where we went. We focused on the priorities of the case investigation, contact tracing, the ring testing around around the outbreaks, and then making sure we had staff in place for COVID vaccinations, and then the additional ring test or the additional asymptomatic testing would be as we had staff. It would not allow us to have a consistent weekly test event on each of the islands.
So, Mark, how many waves of vaccination delivery were you thinking of in your plans?
I think there's going to be potentially 3 or 4. Most of them are requiring a 2-dose vaccine 6 weeks apart, with the first priority, what they call 1A, would being your medical and first responders, 1B being your high-risk individuals. There's some movement to see if pharmacies would be able to do the long-term care facilities. That work right now is looking at some of the larger pharmacies, which the chain pharmacies, which don't necessarily work for our long-term care facilities here. So we would then move into those higher risk populations, those vulnerable populations. From there, it's your essential workers, teachers, other essential critical workers, and then from there into the general public at large.
But I assume it'll model the flu vaccine event that you scheduled recently, incorporating multiple partners and but still a lot of coordination and staff time on our part on multiple islands in multiple waves.
Correct.
This is Dr. James. Could I add a comment?
Please.
I think that what Mark has presented is 2 RN positions for 6 months, and I think what staff had supported was actually 2 RN positions for 12 months. That's the main difference that I see. And certainly 2 for 6 months is a very good start. I think they're essential positions. I believe that this is not going to be over in 6 months and that we'll probably need additional depth. And it really, for budgeting purposes, I think the question is just, do you want to budget for them now or do you want to take that issue up later? And also the expectations we put out there for the people that we hire. Hiring somebody for 6 months is a certain sort of person. Hiring people for a year is a different person. These are hard positions to fill. I personally believe they should be for 12 months. I don't make the budget, Mark does. I appreciate that he presented in a fair, objective way, but I do think you should know that other people in the department that actually do this work every day believe that those should be 12-month positions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Is there any other questions from council?
Well, I'm just, and maybe this goes to it, but it seems like what we're estimating for Mark is like most of the packages, which is fine. But I mean, in some of these, we're budgeting money that I personally believe there's going to be some sort of reimbursement program, or hopefully we won't need it all. When we talk about for isolation and quarantine, I agree with Dr. James. We're not going to be out of the woods for quite a while. but we're setting this. We've also set aside for on-call people, so we don't know how much that's going to end up being. Out of that, I just did a envelope, but out of the 804, it's like 555 is what we've asked Mark to provide for us. And like I said, which all may or may not be used.
Or more may be used.
Well, yeah.
Right?
I agree with what you're saying. Can I ask you to, what is your point? You're saying we're good?
Well, I think it's important that we budget for these things. Like Mylene said, we don't have any guarantees of extra funding coming in, but I don't think we're the only ones that are looking at this issue.
No, I completely agree. I to your point, I think that a good portion of this, or at least some of this, will be reimbursed from some capacity from the state or federal government at some point over the next 12 months.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say, so you're comfortable with what Mark has presented is?
Yeah. I mean.
And you think if, per Dr. James, if there's extra money that's needed, we'll just work on that when we get there?
At this point, yes, but I don't know. How's everybody else feel?
So, yeah, Mylene, so right now we're not tapping the reserve in any way in 2021, correct? Mylene?
Sorry, had to unmute myself. That is correct.
So
a budget is always a plan. It has to be based on your best estimates and expectations at the time you put it together, and that's why we have amendments. But Council asked Mark to estimate his needs for the next year.
Yep.
I think he's done that.
Yep. All right, but I mean, we did budget to tap the reserve in 2020 by $411,000.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that currently in the current budget, best guess, we're not tapping the reserve.
That is correct.
So, again, being unprecedented, times, one might argue that next year's council may have to tap the reserve depending on how the unexpecteds actually happen. Okay.
And Bill, to your point, I'd much rather look at the reserves and set aside an additional amount of money to have that as a potentially funded position for the year. So it's already identified and there and ready to go. So it looks like Jamie and I have a little bit different opinions. So what is your thoughts, Bill?
Well, my final question is going to be the same old drum I've been beating for 6 months now. Great. So, we're talking about somewhere between $500,000 or $750,000 or $1 million incremental expenses. What are we going to stop doing and to free up some money? So
bring the road shift back.
Say what?
Bring the road shift back.
Yeah. So, but I asked that of Mr. Thomas and all the department heads going, look at, clearly we've got to deal with COVID. Clearly council next year is going to have to deal with COVID. We don't know exactly how that's going to shape up. So what are we going to not? Somebody needs to mute themselves. It sounded like Linnea. Anyway, so, what are we going to stop doing so that we can do all this extra work for COVID? So instead of looking at it, if we were doing our own personal, budget, we wouldn't spend more money everywhere because we don't have the authority to print money. So if we're going to spend more money on COVID, then we need to spend less money someplace else.
You have my agreement.
So, Bill, I guess my thought process is that we have a reserve that's available to set money aside, so our staff and our community knows that we're preparing for the worst case scenario. If the money, as Mr. Stevens said, is either reimbursed or not used, then it's carried forward and either replaces the budget stabilization fund where it's come from, or is covered, as you mentioned, through other ways. Although I'm still not 100% sure with, it seems a little gray area on what our actual reserves are going to be. Meaning, I think we're going to have a lot more money either in new tax revenue or unspent money this year than is being portrayed. So that would allow us to set aside some money and a reserve to help our health department and our community if needed.
Well, and let's make sure we all agree. In effect, we've tapped the reserves for $1 million. We pulled out $411,000 in 2020. We didn't move in the $300,000 we normally did in 2020, and we're not moving in the $300,000 in 2021. So that's $1 million of reserve funds that we quote have already, pulled out to try to help budget or balance the budget. If my memory serves me correctly.
But isn't the point of a rainy day fund for when it's raining?
And we've used it. Right? Imagine if we didn't have that rainy day fund or, planned those transfers, where that $1 million would have come from.
So it sounds to me that through both of you, you both agree with Mark's recommendation, and we can just move forward on that. Is that fair?
It is with me.
I think we need to move forward, but I would also challenge, Mr. Thomas and the department heads, including Mr. Tompkins, to come up with a cut, I'm not talking squeezes, I'm talking about a cut that can free up, at least $500,000.
Okay, I cannot support asking the health department in the middle of a global pandemic to try to cut money out of their department. I draw the line there. If there's other places we want to do it, like maybe bring some of the shift money back from Public Works that's now fully funded through 976, that's fine. I am not going to ask the health department to sacrifice anything more so we can have some kind of economic game here. So they need to be fully funded. We need to support the health department. If you need to find other money, I think we have plenty of money to cover the request that Mark's doing and still have an ending cash balance that will function per our county code.
I didn't say we had to pull it out of the health department. I said the department heads. Department heads.
Mr. Tompkins.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
I mean, I think part of the consternation is that we can't know what we don't know, and we don't know how things are going to unfold. But I think Mark has been successful in illustrating what the cost may be to continue our COVID response. And if you look at how much we spent this year that was covered by CARES, it was a substantial amount of money. So I think going forward that I'm hopeful that we're going to get state or federal funding. But if we don't, and we have to burden current expense to what's illustrated on the screen, then it is going to be a mandatory budget cut exercise again, or a discussion about offsetting that with reserves.
Well, Mike, there's at least $500,000, if not $600,000 more in sales tax that's not reported on this sheet. So we can be conservative as long as we want, but we're going to have $400,000 to $600,000 more in this year, and I would assume, assuming we can get this under control at the COVID side and our businesses stay at least in a phase 2 scenario, we should have more money than we had in 2020.
Well, I'm certainly hopeful that that's the case, and some of the other things that we've done this year pay off down the road. And it's hard to figure out the budget because I think the really impactful things are going to happen in the next couple months. But at some point, obviously, we have to put together the budget and pass it, it may not be as robust as we want.
All right. Is there anything
So
else
what are you
regarding?
saying there, Mike?
I think at some point you have to. I think you have to go with it. The ending fund balance. I'm hopeful it's going to be larger than what it's represented now by the time we get to the end of the year with revenue and other adjustments, and that we know what the COVID burden may be on the 21 budget, but we don't know if that's going to be realized or not until we get into 21 and know that there's going to be state funding or federal funding or the timing of the vaccine. So I'm fine with the picture that's created, and we're just going to have to be flexible in 21. If it's a horrible scenario, then we're going to have to morph the county's financial resources to meet that health need, and that may be substantial cuts, or we are successful with another round of CARES funding and we're fine. But I just think at some point that we just have to put the budget together, and it may not look very good, but I don't know how we continue to guess.
Thank you for that explanation. That's pretty much where I am.
Okay. All right. Well, since we received documents fairly late, I would like another week. I'd like to, I don't know if there's any other discussions regarding.
There is one more decision package you might want to look at.
My apologies. I haven't gone through all of them because I just got them.
Which one?
This one is not in the current fixed fund. It is for land bank. We did discuss it last week. It's to create a part-time position from March 1st through the end of next year, actually through the December pay period. Basically hiring back the retiring office manager to help with some office procedures, focusing on record retention management procedures.
And that's coming out of the land bank funds, right?
That comes out of the land bank funds. It is tentatively included in the budget.
Right.
And you do need at least another week to do to look at the budget, because this is only the current expense fund. We haven't even looked at the other funds yet.
And Mylene, in the employee side of things, this includes the we had the early retirement program that didn't pay out this year, but should pay off next year. So does that include those savings?
Oh, all of those savings are in here.
Okay, thank you.
Most of those positions were replaced, remember, so don't,
Well, no, I realize that, but at possibly a different level.
All right. So is there any additional questions regarding the presentation today? If not, I don't. Motion to continue to November 24th.
Mr. Chair, let me have to get my thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. You phased out there. I lost whatever you said, Rick.
Sorry, I would like to entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to the 24th at 9:15 a.m. in Friday Harbor and on YouTube and Skype.
Right. Mr. Chair, I move we continue the current public hearing to adopt an ordinance of San Juan County, Washington, amending the annual budget for the year 2021 and setting forth the estimated revenues and appropriations until Tuesday, November 24th at 9:15 a.m.
Second.
We have a motion and second to continue a public hearing to adopt an ordinance of San Juan County, Washington, amending the annual budget for year 2021 and setting forth the estimated revenues and appropriations to the 24th of November at 9:15 a.m. in Friday Harbor on YouTube and attainable via Skype. Are there any questions or comments?
Nope.
Without seeing any, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is it all right if we have 3-0? Is it all right if we have a 10-minute recess?
Sure.
You bet.
We will now, it is now 11:15. We will return, let's just say, 10:15, and we will return at 10:30. So it'll be a 15-minute recess. Thank you very much.